Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is May 13th. On this day in 2016, 25-year-old Rhonda Chantay Blankenship went out for her usual evening walk in Brownwood, Texas. But that day, she never came home. 2 days later, her body was discovered in the cellar of an abandoned farmhouse, a place that locals refer to as the haunted house. The search for Chantay's killer would stretch across nearly 18 months, drawing on advanced forensic tools, determined police work, and ultimately ending with a confession in the most unexpected of places, a church service. Today, we're revisiting the heartbreaking murder of Chantay Blankenship, a young woman remembered for her warmth, her faith, and innocence, and the community that never stopped fighting for her. Let's get started. Rhonda Chantay Blankenship was born on November 19, 1990 in Brownwood, Texas, to Michelle McDaniel. She was one of 8 siblings in a large, tightly bonded family. She spent much of her childhood under the care of her grandfather, Charlie Barnett, a retired Navy diver and former police officer. Chantay was diagnosed with pervasive developmental disorder, a condition on the autism spectrum that affected her reading, speech, and ability to live on her own. But despite those challenges, she thrived with support. She graduated from Brownwood High School in 2010, sang in the church choir, and became known around the neighborhood for her bright smile and kind spirit. She found joy in simple routines, especially her daily walks, listening to music and enjoying a bit of freedom. It was during one of those walks, on the evening of May 13th, 2016, that her life was tragically stolen. That Friday evening, Chantay set off on her regular walk near her home in North Lake, a rural neighborhood in Brown County. As usual, she called her grandfather around sunset to say she was near the community mailboxes and would be home soon. But when she didn't return, Charlie began to worry. He searched the neighborhood but found no sign of her. By the next morning, still with no word, the family contacted the Brown County Sheriff's Office. Given her disability, the police took her disappearance seriously and a search began immediately. The news of Chantay's disappearance spread quickly, sparking a grassroots search effort that drew family, friends, and neighbors into the hunt. Then, on Sunday, May 15th, 2 days later, came a horrific discovery. Volunteers Charlie Radel and Jackie Neal were searching the area near an abandoned Victorian-style farmhouse that locals called the haunted house. As they approached the property, they noticed tire tracks, strands of hair, and a brightly colored rubber bracelet near the gate. Following those signs, they peered into the storm cellar and made a devastating discovery. Chantay's body was lying face down at the bottom of the concrete stairs, clothed only in a t-shirt. Nearby lay a bloodied lawnmower blade. An autopsy later revealed that Chantay had been brutally beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled. The lawnmower blade had caused severe trauma to her head, face, and neck. A shoe print was visible on her chest. Despite the horror of the crime, investigators found one piece of evidence: a male DNA profile at the scene. But the identity of the killer would remain a mystery, at least for a while. With the help of the FBI and the Texas Rangers, the Brown County Sheriff's Office launched an intense investigation. They interviewed over 100 people, collected DNA samples from more than 30 men, and checked every registered sex offender in the area. But none of the samples matched the crime scene DNA. They entered the profile into CODIS, the national DNA database. But still, nothing. Even a familial DNA search yielded no results. As weeks turned into months, strange tips trickled in. Some speculated that Chantay had been killed by a drifter. Others claimed an occult gang was involved. All were dead ends. In a bid to revive the case, Sergeant Scott Bird turned to Parabon Nanolabs, which used DNA phenotyping to create a suspect profile. Their snapshot technology generated a composite image of a white male with light brown hair, blue or green eyes, and light skin. The image was shared publicly. Then, something clicked. One of Chantay's brothers thought the sketch resembled somebody they knew. 21-year-old Ryan Derrick Riggs. Ryan Riggs was an acquaintance of Chantay and her boyfriend and was a familiar face around their neighborhood church. What no one knew was that he had been hiding a dark secret. On November 15, 2017, during an evening service at North Lake Community Church, Riggs approached Pastor Ron Keener and asked to speak to the congregation. Standing before stunned churchgoers, Riggs confessed, quote, "I'm a murderer. I killed Chantay Blankenship," end quote. After the service, he went down to the Brown County Sheriff's Office with his parents and pastor, where he gave a full 2-hour confession. He told investigators that on May 13, 2016, he saw Chantay during her walk. He offered her a ride and she got into his truck. He drove her to a remote area by the lake, strangled her until she passed out, and sexually assaulted her. Fearing that she might survive and report him, he transported her to the abandoned farmhouse and struck her repeatedly with a lawnmower blade. He said he chose her because she was small and had disabilities. He believed that she wouldn't fight back. He also claimed to have had a spiritual revelation before confession saying, quote, "God told me, if you want salvation, this is what you have to do," end quote. DNA analysis confirmed his guilt. Riggs's profile was an exact match to the DNA recovered at the crime scene. Riggs was charged with capital murder and was held without bail. Though a trial was initially scheduled for September 2019, both sides entered into plea negotiations. In February 2019, after discussions with Chantay's family and careful consideration, prosecutors agreed not to seek the death penalty. In exchange, Riggs pleaded guilty. On February 15, 2019, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. At the sentencing, Chantay's mother, Michelle McDaniel, addressed Riggs directly, saying, quote, "My daughter would have forgiven you. That's the kind of person she was. I hope one day you realize what you've done, not just to us, but to your family too," end quote. Riggs is now serving his sentence at the James V. Allred Unit in Iowa Park, Texas. For Chantay's loved ones, justice brought some relief, but could never erase the loss. The farmhouse where her body was found became a local magnet for curiosity and rumors. In 2025, its owners decided to demolish the property. Property manager Brent Woodley said, quote, "We're doing this as a favor to the community and to ourselves," end quote. A small memorial now marks the spot, honoring Chantay's life and the light she brought to others. Chantay's story was featured in a 2025 episode of Dateline titled The Haunted House Confession, which chronicled the case from the search to the courtroom. Though her life was tragically cut short, Chantay left behind a legacy of kindness and faith, and she'll continue to be remembered for the love she brought to Brownwood. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Chantay's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!